Welcome back to Question Period. The return of Donald Trump to the White House has prompted a renewed focus in Canada on defense spending and defense procurement. The military desperately needs new and improved equipment, but that need comes at the same time the federal government is trying to spend less money on American-made equipment. This point of tension is probably best exemplified by Ottawa's F-35 fighter jet procurement. The Air Force needs new fighter jets, but the government is now reviewing that contract because of the Canada-U.S. trade war. Chief of Defense Staff General Jennie Carignan is Canada's top soldier. Hi, General Carignan. Good to see you again. Thank you very much for making the time.
Thanks, Vashi. Great to be here.
The government very recently has announced what they're calling basically a new agency to take hold of defense procurement, or to reform the way in which defense procurement is done. And part of what they pitched in telling Canadians about this new agency is the idea that we spend, 75 cents, for example, on every dollar on defense procurement in the United States, and they'd like to see that number change to move away from that. In principle, is that something you think is a good idea?
Well, I think for us, this is definitely good news. In the end, the creation for the agency for us is about getting the capabilities and the equipment that we need to better defend Canada. So the whole idea behind creating the agency is actually to improve our procurement system.
And from your perspective, as someone who oversees the Canadian military, how much room for improvement is there?
There is a lot of room for improvement, that is for sure. Like we've been commenting now for many years on many improvements that we needed to bring forward. So it's not only about creating this new structure, but it's also about consolidating the many aspects involved into procurement. But it is also about reviewing the processes because structure alone is not going to take us to where we need to go. So a huge opportunity here to streamline and do better in procuring at the speed that we need the equipment, especially in the current geopolitical context.
Yeah, and I did want to ask you about that because I interviewed the minister who will oversee the agency, and he described it as having the ability to be first of all, a single point of accountability, but to also essentially triage some of those capability needs. And I'm wondering, from your vantage point, obviously someone who's intimately familiar with what our men and women in the armed forces need to do their job, what would you identify as the most significant capability gaps at the moment that you would like to see focused on first?
Well, we are already engaged in a significant transformation agenda. Our Army, Navy, and Air Force and Special Operations. And now, as of today, we have officially welcomed the Canadian Coast Guard as part of the defense team as well. So we are all engaged in historical transformation. And of course, the procurement system that was established in a peacetime are not delivering at the pace that we need for today's needs. So those transformations involve both expanding the personnel within our forces, but also it involves acquiring the many systems that are relevant in today's world. So the Army is acquiring long-range precision strikes systems. It's also about UAS, like uncrewed drone system, both air and underwater. So there's definitely that area that we need to do better. Counter-drone as well is the other aspect of where we need to work. New sensors, command and control system, artificial intelligence, so a digitization of our overall processes as well. So many areas where we are currently transforming the forces.
How would you describe, for Canadians watching right now, the risk environment in today's world?
Well, the risk environment is such that there are accelerants in place that accelerate the pace of the environment. And those, from my perspective, one are the climate change, and secondly, technology. So from a Canadian perspective per se, we are observing from our adversaries a lot of development in missile technology, which now creates vulnerabilities for Canada. Like in the end, our geography is not protecting us as well as before. So equipping ourselves with the necessary sensors and radars to detect what could possibly come towards our territory, but also the ability to defeat what could possibly come at us. So the environment has greatly changed over the past 10 years in that our territory now is more at risk than it used to be before, and then we have to be in a position where we can actually deter those various threats.
And can we do that on our own, or do we need the Golden Dome?
So there is definitely a portion where we have to do it from a Canadian sovereign perspective. We have to take care of the Arctic. We have to take our responsibilities in the Arctic, and then do it collaboratively with our American counterparts. Defending the continent is much more efficient when we do it together. Because as we know, missiles don't recognize borders. So that collaboration and partnership and complementary posture is absolutely necessary to do this well. So doing it together is much more efficient operationally.
Do you support in principle joining the Golden Dome?
So the Golden Dome, I have to mention, this is very much the American terminology to describe what they are doing. On our side, we have been working at NORAD modernization, which and various other initiatives which contribute to that missile defense within Canada as well. Now it will be about doing this together, what the Americans are looking at in terms of planning going into the future, and how we can bring this together to have the best possible defense for this continent, for North America.
Pardon me, I apologize. The U.S. ambassador, I believe it was back in May, told me that if Canada were to pull out of the agreement it has reached to secure those 88 F-35s, or the initial, not just the initial tranche, but the entire order, that there would have to be a discussion on NORAD, intimating that it could put the continental defense system that you just outlined at risk if we did not go forward with the F-35s. Do you have a position on whether or not Canada should move forward with that?
So I'm not going to be stipulating on what could happen in the future. This is clear that we are in the middle of building capacity for Canada to defend itself and to cover the Arctic. So there's many different systems that contribute to that. It will not be about just one of those, and the F-35 is part of that overall defense, but we are going basically, it's the cyber domain, it's space, it's also about ground radars, and it's about water, like maritime, underwater. So there's a whole range of capacity that we need to build that will all be networked together to do this work. So again, those conversations continue, and then once we're ready for a decision, we'll move forward.
Can the military afford to wait on that decision, given the age of even the replacement fighter aircraft from Australia, and given the other things that are necessary, like building out infrastructure and training pilots? Should we go ahead with the F-35s? Can the military afford to wait for a decision?
So we're not currently in the position where we are waiting. So we are working towards this acquisition. Our pilots are off to the U.S. in the next few months to start training. The infrastructure is going up. We have airfields being extended to get ready. So we are definitely not in a position where we are waiting. So we are moving forward, and then once a decision is made, we'll just go with and ensure that we adapt to whatever decision is made.
Does it make sense, though, if they decide not to go with it, that all of that work and money that's being spent would just come to a conclusion?
So I think that will be for the government to decide.
Fair point. General Carignan, a real pleasure as always. Thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you so much, Vashti. All the best.
When we come back, new markets. The Liberal government is seeking to diversify trade away from the United States. Key to that, China. But the two nations remain locked in their own trade dispute. Is that going to change anytime soon? China's ambassador to Canada, Wang Di, will be here after a short commercial break, and I'll ask him that question.